The first snow of winter fell softly on the rural countryside, dusting the pine trees and transforming the landscape into a pristine wonderland. Alexandra Reynolds stared out the window of her Bentley, watching the delicate flakes dance in the air before settling on the deserted road. She was miles from anywhere, lost on a back road she'd mistakenly taken while trying to find a shortcut to her mountain retreat. Alexandra was not accustomed to setbacks. At 34, she had built a tech empire from scratch, turning a small startup into a billion-dollar company. Her life in New York City was a whirlwind of meetings, galas, and endless social obligations. This weekend was supposed to be her escape, a few precious days alone at her newly purchased mountain lodge. The car sputtered once, twice, then died completely, rolling to a stop on the snow-covered road. "Perfect," Alexandra muttered, pulling out her phone. No service. She pressed the ignition button again and again, but the luxury vehicle remained stubbornly silent. The heating system slowly faded, and the chill began to seep into the car's plush interior. Alexandra pulled her camel-colored coat tighter around her body. The designer outfit she'd chosen, high-waisted skirt, turtleneck, and knee-high boots, suddenly seemed woefully inadequate for a winter emergency. She peered through the windshield, squinting against the increasingly heavy snowfall. In the distance, a red tractor rumbled into view, moving slowly along the roadside. With a surge of relief, Alexandra stepped out of her car, the cold air biting at her cheeks. She raised an arm, waving at the approaching figure. The tractor came to a halt, and a man in a checkered shirt stepped down. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with strong hands and a face weathered by years working outdoors. His sleeves were rolled up despite the cold, revealing muscular forearms. "Car trouble?" he asked simply, his voice deep and unhurried. "Yes," Alexandra replied, trying to keep her teeth from chattering. "It just died, and I don't have cell service out here." The man nodded, approaching her vehicle. "Name's Daniel Wilson. I farm about half a mile up the road." "Alexandra Reynolds," she responded, watching as he examined her car with practiced eyes. Daniel straightened up after a few minutes. "Looks like your engine's overheated, then froze up in this cold. Won't be going anywhere today." He gestured toward the thickening snowfall. "Storm's coming in faster than predicted. You can wait in my tractor while I hook your car up. I'll tow it to my place, and you can call for help from there." Alexandra hesitated for just a moment before the whistling wind made her decision for her. She climbed into the tractor's cabin, which was surprisingly warm, if not exactly comfortable. Daniel secured her Bentley to the tractor with practiced efficiency, then rejoined her. The journey to Daniel's farm was slow and bumpy. Alexandra watched the countryside crawl by, so different from the blur of city life she was used to. Daniel remained quiet, focused on navigating the increasingly treacherous road. "Have you lived here long?" Alexandra asked, trying to fill the silence. "All my life," Daniel replied. "Families worked this land for 3 generations." Alexandra nodded, unsure what else to say. The gulf between their worlds suddenly seemed as vast as the snow-covered fields surrounding them. The farmhouse came into view, modest but well-maintained, with smoke curling from the chimney. Daniel parked the tractor and helped Alexandra down, then led her toward the house while the snow swirled around them. "Come on in," he said, opening the front door. "You can warm up while I make some calls." Alexandra stepped inside, surprised by what she found. The interior was simple but immaculately clean, with handcrafted wooden furniture and walls lined with bookshelves. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, casting a warm glow throughout the living room. "Make yourself comfortable," Daniel said, gesturing toward an armchair near the fire. "I'll get you something hot to drink." Alexandra sank into the chair, the tension in her shoulders beginning to ease as the warmth from the fire enveloped her. She looked around, taking in details she wouldn't have expected. framed black and white photographs that showed a keen artistic eye, shelves filled with classics of literature and modern fiction alike, a well-worn piano in the corner. Daniel returned with 2 steaming mugs. "Bad news," he said, handing one to Alexandra. "Phone lines are down from the storm. Internet, too. Happens sometimes out here. Could be a day before they're back up." Alexandra's eyes widened. "A day? But I need 2..." She stopped, realizing there was nothing to be done. No amount of money or influence could control the weather or repair downed lines faster. "You're welcome to stay until it clears," Daniel offered. "Got a spare room. It's not fancy, but it's warm." As the evening progressed, Alexandra found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't in years. Daniel prepared a simple but delicious meal from food he'd grown himself. They talked by firelight, awkwardly at first, then with increasing ease. Daniel shared stories of farm life, the challenges of making ends meet in an economy that favored big agriculture over small farmers. Alexandra found herself opening up about the loneliness that often came with success, the exhaustion of always being on guard in a competitive industry. "Sometimes I wonder if it's worth it," she admitted. "The bigger my company grows, the further I get from why I started it in the first place." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Land's like that too. Easy to forget it's not just about the harvest, but about the growing." The next morning, Alexandra woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, she was disoriented, then remembered where she was. She dressed quickly and made her way downstairs. Daniel was already up, preparing breakfast. "Lines are still down," he informed her, "but the roads are clearer. I could take you into town if you'd like." Alexandra considered this. Her weekend retreat was already disrupted. The thought of rushing back to her busy life suddenly felt less urgent than it had yesterday. "Actually," she said slowly, "I'm not in a hurry. If it's not an imposition, I'd like to stay another day." Daniel looked surprised but pleased. No imposition at all. That day, Alexandra experienced farm life firsthand. Daniel showed her around his property, explaining his methods of sustainable farming. Alexandra, who prided herself on her quick mind, asked questions and offered suggestions that sometimes made Daniel look at his operations from a new perspective. By evening, as they again sat by the fire, Alexandra found herself contemplating possibilities she'd never considered before. Her tech company had been developing agricultural software, but without real input from the farmers who would use it. Daniel's insights were more valuable than a dozen market research reports. "Daniel," she said suddenly, "have you ever thought about consulting work?" He looked puzzled. "Can't say that I have. My company is developing software for small farmers. We need someone who understands both the challenges and the opportunities. Someone genuine." The next morning, as Daniel drove Alexandra back to town in his old truck, they had outlined the beginnings of a partnership. Alexandra would provide funding for Daniel to modernize his farm as a test case for her company's new software. Daniel would provide honest feedback and guidance on making it truly useful for farmers like him. As they reached the town limits, Alexandra looked back at the snow-covered fields they'd left behind. What had begun as a mishap had led to something unexpected, a connection that bridged 2 different worlds and offered new possibilities for both. "I'll be in touch soon about those contracts," Alexandra said, as Daniel pulled up to the town's small hotel. Daniel nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. "Looking forward to it." Alexandra stepped out of the truck, standing tall in her designer boots and camel coat. She was already mentally rearranging her schedule, making room for this new project, and perhaps for more visits to this quiet countryside that had, in just 2 days, begun to feel like somewhere she could catch her breath. Sometimes she reflected, the most valuable journeys were the ones you never planned to take.